Hi, I'm Amanda Lamond, and I'm going to talk to you today about how to move from surviving to thriving in exams. This is part two. The first part of the talk I've recorded separately, and that's more kind of background on stress in the legal profession, anxiety, depression, giving you kind of more context for understanding what you may be feeling. This talk today is a more kind of hands-on approach. And I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. I know you have studying to be done. And I just wanted to say this is drawn from my own experience, having studied for a very long time, first a degree in languages, and then I'd studied law, did all my attorney's exams. But it also draws on my experience of coaching students over the years and looking at the very, very high levels of stress and what we do about it. One thing I can guarantee is that if you follow the suggestions I make here, it is going to make your experience of exams completely different. And these are things that I wish I had known back in the day when I was studying law. So here we go. My top 10 tips, which I've called exam commitments. So the first one is, I remember I am not alone. There is nothing wrong with me. The second, perspective. Will this matter in 10 years' time? The third is, I'm doing my daily end goal visualization. The fourth is, I recognize when I'm spiraling and move. Number 5, I know sleep is a priority even when I could squeeze in one more hour's work. 6, I am going to eat well. 7, I will exercise my body. 8, I will meditate every day even for 3 minutes. 9, I have a reasonable and balanced study timetable. And 10, I practice compassion for myself and others. So let's go through these one at a time. The first one, I am not alone and there's nothing wrong with me. So in the previous talk that I did, I showed this graph, and really it's an American study. What it shows you, if you look here under third year, is a huge spike in the levels of depression. So we've got general population, which is the yellow line, and then the red line is showing you what's going on with lawyers. Pre-law, first year, third year. The point is, you need to understand that it is perfectly normal to be experiencing a huge shift in levels of rising depression and anxiety in your third year of law school. It's very sad but true. And there are a couple of reasons for this, which I explained in the previous talk. I want you to know that if you are struggling, if you are feeling depressed, if you are having panic attacks, if you are struggling to sleep at night, there is nothing wrong with you. This is more the norm. So here are some things that you can do about it. But I think it's really important as a starting point is that you realize there is nothing in particular wrong with you. You have not failed. So moving on to the second one, perspective. Will this matter in 10 years' time? I want to tell you about my friend. My friend's name is George. And George was studying a business science degree, and he could not get through his one subject, which was accounts. Accounts, I think it was accounts 3 or accounts 4. And he wrote that exam, I think, more than 2 or 3 times. And in the end, George didn't finish that accounts, which meant that he didn't get his degree. But I want to tell you that he's gone on to start a company which is incredibly successful. He employs about 50, 60 people. He has bought 2 beautiful homes for his family. George is changing employees' lives. In the end, it turns out that getting that accounts exam was not that important. So I want you to take a moment when everything seems overwhelming, and this may be on a daily basis, when you remind yourself, is this going to matter in 10 years' time? Now, I'm not saying that failing a subject and therefore not getting your law degree, is a good idea. But it can feel completely overwhelming in the moment. It can feel like a life or death matter. And believe it or not, exams are not a life or death matter. So sometimes it just helps to sit down and go, is this going to matter in 10 years' time? If you're in your first year and you are failing everything, maybe it turns out that law isn't the thing for you. And maybe you're going to be pointed in a new direction, which is a much better fit for who you are as a person. There could be all sorts of reasons. Maybe you need to get more tutoring. Maybe adding an extra year to your degree while you work part-time is going to serve you better in the long run. It is very hard to see the wood for the trees when you are in it and the exam is looming, or when you get that result back and you haven't got what you wanted. But I really encourage you to try and take a longer term perspective on your life. The next point number 3, is I visualize myself succeeding. It's really important that you play videos in your mind that show you succeeding. Too often, because we are fearful, we play videos in our mind of all the terrible things that could go wrong. Now, you may have seen The Secret, which was really quite an Americanized and simplified version of how we create reality. But we strongly affect what is going on in our lives by the picture that we are carrying in our minds, by the movie that we play ourselves. Successful people believe they will be successful. So you don't want to be holding a movie in your head of you failing exams and you failing your law degree and being out on the street and your bursaries being removed. But those are the sorts of things that can play in our minds when we get panic-stricken. So it is really important that you hold a video in your mind of you successfully passing exams, of going to that notice board or getting that message on your phone and seeing how well you've done, and that you replay this video daily in your mind. I will provide a separate recording for you to listen to of just a couple of minutes that helps you play this video in your mind of visualizing yourself succeeding. It is really, really important. It may seem esoteric, but I work with thousands of people. I have created miracles in my life by being very clear around the vision I hold in my mind. The next one, step 4, is I recognize when I'm spiraling and move. You'll see here on the left is the downward spiral where you start to feel bad, you do less, then you feel even worse, and you do even less. On the right-hand side is the upward spiral where you do something, a little bit of studying, go for a walk, you feel a little bit better, you're able to do a bit more, and then you feel even better. We all know what it's like to be in a downward spiral, but most of us aren't taught any techniques for how to get out of it. So there is a difference between a full-blown anxiety attack and then just being in a downward spiral. And it's important to kind of know the differences. When you're in a full-blown anxiety attack, your body thinks that it's facing a real-life threat, even though that threat isn't there. The threat is, in fact, an exam, and your body is treating the threat as if you were facing a woolly mammoth about to attack you. Because our brains developed like this during caveman days when our brains were still developing. So in a full-blown body attack, a panic attack, you're going to be experiencing things like your pupils actually dilate. Your breathing turns very rapid and it's quite high in your chest, not in your stomach. So you start feeling quite tight in your chest. You can start feeling dizzy because you're breathing so much, oxygen builds up. Your heart beats faster. You may start sweating, which is about preventing your body overheating. Blood pressure increases, veins constrict, your hands and feet can feel cold, and your digestive system generally kind of shuts down. So you feel like a dry mouth, fluttery gut, nausea, diarrhea. So these things happen in a full-blown panic attack. In this wonderful book about anxiety, a woman who went on to be a magazine editor, she says here, I've only had this kind of attack once when I was in law school in the middle of an exam. Since then, instead, I have the pleasure, she says sarcastically, of what I've been told are intellectual anxiety attacks, or what I call anxiety spirals. So these spirals are more in my head, and to an external observer, I may look perfectly normal, but inside I'm a whirly of thoughts and nervousness, and I'm not unaware of what's going on. I'm actually hyper aware. So you need to start distinguishing if you are suffering from anxiety. Are you having anxiety attacks, or are you having anxiety spirals? What I'm going to provide for those of you who are part of this group listening to this talk is something called a click track, where you use a kind of tapping technique developed by psychologists that helps scramble the panic that's happening in your mind. Several students used this last year with amazing effects. One of them, even on her third time of playing the click track, actually fell asleep, even though she'd been having a full-blown panic attack a little bit earlier, which is really quite amazing. So recognize if you're having a panic attack. If you are, I suggest that walking, moving is very, very important. So get up and move. Don't just stay sitting at your desk. Talk to someone about what's going on for you. The click track is incredibly helpful. And if it's a downward spiral, similar advice. You need to stop the spiral of thoughts. So you need to be able to get yourself out of that. And quite often it's not continuing sitting at your desk when your mind is spiraling. It's getting up and it's moving. You're also welcome to contact me if you are in a downward spiral, and the other members of this group, and let's see if we can help get you out of it. The next one, so step number 5, is I know sleep is a priority even when I could squeeze in 1 more hour of studying. I know from my own experience that I'd get so anxious that I felt I just had to keep studying, even though it was maybe 2 in the morning and I knew that I needed to sleep. This is vital that you remember this. Without sufficient REM sleep, which is short for rapid eye movement sleep, all the intake from the day doesn't get processed. If it isn't processed, we won't remember information or access it when it is useful. So we limit our ability to have new insights and to make useful or important connections. So even though you may think that you absolutely have no time to stop and sleep because you need to keep studying, it is having the opposite effect. Your brain is not going to retain information. I have spoken to so many students who pulled all-nighters and then found that during the exam the next day, they couldn't recall the information because your brain is in overload. So it really is a good habit to start getting into now as you prepare for exams, whatever year you're in, that you start by ensuring you get enough sleep so that the hours you are studying, you are really taking in the information instead of just overloading your brain. That also means that you don't study ever for more than an hour and a half without taking a break. So not more than 90 minutes, preferably 1 hour, and then take a break. Because for the last kind of 20 minutes, if you're trying to do 90 minutes, you won't be taking in that much information. Sleep deprivation has radical effects on the brain, more so than anything else. I'm quoting from a study now, which says, a study on military subjects demonstrated that a loss of 1 night's sleep resulted in about a 30% loss in cognitive skill, and a loss of 2 nights' sleep amounted to a 60% cognitive decline. Regularly shortchanging sleep is equally damaging. A study showed that sleeping less than 6 hours each night for a span of 5 nights resulted in a diminished cognitive performance similar to missing 2 continuous nights of sleep. Okay, so just to repeat that, if you have been getting less than 6 hours of sleep for a span of about 5 nights, that's the same as missing 2 continuous nights of sleep, which means that your cognitive functioning is 60% less effective. Like, that's massive. You're only using 40% of your brain. So if nothing else, you change these exams, it's that you sleep more. Moving on. Step number 6, and the commitment you make to yourself: I am going to eat well. I know that is difficult on limited budgets, and so many students have told me that. So they're eating the cheapest food available, which is very often high carbohydrate food. So bread, sandwiches, slab chips, and sometimes pasta. Now, all of these things, which are refined carbohydrates, have the effect of making your body go to sleep. So you wonder why you're unable to stay awake in the afternoons. This is it. What you eat is critical. So it is time to start shifting what you eat, saving some money where you can, and preparing food in your room where you can, making healthier choices. I know that there are challenges, and I know you don't all have place where you can prepare food, but some of the things you need to start incorporating in your diet are these. So nuts and raisins, even peanuts and raisins, those aren't very expensive. I know that other types of nuts are. Fruit and Veg City is the best place to go for bulk buying. Apples with peanut butter. So there's an effect that the apples, when they are combined with peanut butter, which has some fat in it and protein, so it's not then a high carbohydrate meal. Bananas, carrots with hummus or some sort of other dip, eating oranges. Jungle oats is quite a good one. Green veggies, cheese, Greek yogurt. So not the sugary yogurt. Any yogurt that's sugared is not going to help. Whole wheat crackers or pretzels. Eating eggs are really good for your brain. Eating sardines, pilchards, any type of fish that you can buy in cans is probably the cheapest. And eating avocado. Make sure that you have regular snacks, because using the brain actually consumes large amounts of calories. You would think that only moving around and exercising does, but actually there's enough research that shows the brain is the biggest organ in the body, and using your brain actually uses large amounts of calories. So again, if you're not eating right, it's going to have a huge effect on your ability to take in information while studying. The next one, number 7, I am going to exercise. You don't need to start a new exercise program, nothing drastic, but you do need to move, especially because you will now be sitting at a desk for maybe 8 or 12 hours a day. So it's very important to take stretch breaks from your desk. And it's really important that you incorporate walking, power walking, doing the stairs. Those of you at UCT, I know there are a lot of stairs available. There are fields that you can run around. It may be the last thing that you feel like, because you get sluggish and heavy when you are studying. But if you can take yourself for 2 laps around the field before you go back to your room, make a cup of tea, you will sense an enormous difference in your ability to take in information in your next study session, because your brain gets oxygenated. So anything that leaves you slightly out of breath is good. But again, if you are not in the habit of going for runs, then I don't suggest that you suddenly take up running now in the month before exams, but start power walking. So at least that you are a little bit out of breath. It's vital that you get oxygen into your brain and that you get your red blood cells flowing. The only way to do this is through exercising. Do it with a friend if you like, so that you can have a break and a chat at the same time. Or sometimes I used to find that I'd go over stuff in my mind while I took an exercise break. Huge difference to your ability to study effectively if you combine it with movement. Next one. Number 8, I will meditate every day, even for 3 minutes. There's a wonderful app on your phone that's free called Insight Timer. Insight Timer. And it has guided visualizations and meditations on it, which are all completely free. You just need Wi-Fi unless you've got some data to listen to them. I will provide on this group specific links to things that I have found useful for relaxation on there. Meditating is nothing weird. It's nothing spiritual. It's literally about taking a break to calm your mind. And because of the anxiety levels during exams, I suggest that you use a guided one, because sometimes when you are feeling anxious and you just stop, close your eyes, try and breathe and meditate, it can make you more anxious. That's what has happened in my experience. So finding someone with a calming voice that you listen to can be super, super helpful. Even if it is 3-4 minutes, you need to make that time to let your brain have a break. There can be breathing techniques that you do with that, and I'm going to provide some more techniques on how to meditate and how to use those mindfulness breaks, things that you can do. But for now, the best and easiest thing, if you can download Insight Timer, it's an amazing app. And there are like hundreds and thousands of guided visualizations on there. Step 9, I will have a reasonable and balanced study timetable. Have you ever told yourself, tomorrow I'm going to just read 5 chapters in my jurisprudence reader. I'm going to complete the civil procedure class assignment, and then I'm going to do 1 past paper in contract law. And then you fail to do it all, and you feel bad about yourself. I constantly overwhelm myself by trying to do too much in a day. And it's a pattern that now, even though I'm 41 years old, I am still struggling to break. I set myself an unreasonable amount of things to do in one day, and then I disappoint myself. So start now by choosing blocks of time during your day when you're at your peak. For some people, that's best in the mornings. Others, like me, it's better at night. I'm pretty useless first thing in the morning. But if you often feel worn out after studying for a while and you can't talk yourself into continuing, you need to restructure the way that you study. You need to ensure you include lots of breaks to stay fresh and alert during long study sessions. One of the techniques that you could try is called the Pomodoro technique. That means tomato in Italian. And the Pomodoro technique is you set a timer for 25 minutes. So you get started, you set the timer on your phone and you get started. Either you can start with the most difficult tasks or with the easier ones, which help to sort of give you some momentum. And you then take a 5-minute break. But you do not let yourself get up from your desk or get distracted during that 25-minute period. Obviously, there's things like you do not have your phone on, you do not have WhatsApp open, don't allow any distractions in your room, you don't need music playing unless it's classical music and it really helps in the background to get your brain fired up. Some people do. I've always studied better with silence. When you do take your breaks, your 5-minute breaks, those are the more frequent ones, do nothing related to studying during that time. So relax and recharge. Again, I suggest some exercise. So even if you jump up and down and do like star jumps and do 10 of them, it may sound crazy, but it has an effect. Also, you can use your phone. There are amazing 7-minute workouts. You can do a 7-minute workout in one of your breaks. I will share with you a link to an article called developgoodhabits.com for developing a good study routine. And then finally, number 10, I practice compassion for myself and others. And this is maybe the most important because my own experience is that I really struggle to own my achievements. And sometimes when I did well in an exam, I would just believe afterwards, well, the exam must have been easy. So it has never come naturally to me to know how to pat myself on the back and be proud of myself. It is something that I've had to learn, and it's something that I still spend a lot of time working on about myself. I'm always seeing like what I haven't achieved in a day and where I might have gone wrong in something instead of looking at what I have done in a day and what I have achieved. Those who are drawn to law tend to be hard on themselves. So it's kind of a hallmark of lawyers of having quite high standards. We tend to be perfectionists. And these things contribute to our stress. Even now, sometimes I have to pull myself away from my desk because I find it's not that I lack the drive to do work. I actually have too much drive and I don't allow myself relaxation time. So I share these things because, at 41, I'm still learning how to care for myself and be gentle. And I really want you to encourage yourself at this stage of your career that you start practicing compassion for yourself. You are only human. You will have days when you have more energy than others. And there are days when you are able to study more effectively than others. Life may get in the way. You may have breakups, relationship issues, family stuff going on. And it's really important that you don't just beat yourself up with a big stick that you should be doing more. Allow yourself the time to find your way slowly. Build in extra days so that if something goes wrong, your whole timetable isn't completely derailed. And then also understand that those around you may be struggling. And so show some compassion to those who you are studying with or near. As you learn to judge people's emotions, you may just see someone who needs a hug. And it's amazing how when you support someone else, in the end, that sharing of emotion and support for somebody else will help you too. If you are completely freaking out, a final note is that UCT does have services. There is a psychologist several days a week on your third floor. I am not sure what support is available at UWC. There is Lifeline if you are starting to feel suicidal. And on this group, you're able to reach out, and I will make a time to chat to you as soon as possible over WhatsApp or Skype or Zoom, so that we can see if we can help put you on the right track. And the click track is also a huge tool to help just support you in shifting what's going on if your mind is in a complete negative spiral and you need some help and you're not able to talk to someone at that time. So I will provide that link too. I hope that these tips have been useful to you. They are only as good as you make them. So these are just suggestions. You need to put in the work. And remember, I called them exam commitments because these are commitments you need to make to yourself. I guarantee your experience of exams will be completely different if you put all 10 of these into action. It will change your experience. I wish you well.